Okay, so multiple choice questions. So in this one, you're asked, what is this organelle doing? So what's the organelle? The organelle is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And so what does that do? It synthesizes proteins. So have a look down. What have we got? B, synthesis of proteins. Easy, good start. So then question 2, what do chloroplasts and mitochondria have in common? So we read down, both are found in the cells of plants. That is a true fact. So it's probably that, but let's just idiot check. Both contain guanine. No, only chloroplasts do. Both occur in all eukaryotic cells. No, because chloroplasts aren't in animal cells. And both are found in paramecium. Absolutely not. So A, perfect. So what features of phospholipids give them their amphipathic properties? So the amphipathic property of the phospholipids is where you have a hydrophobic tail and a hydrophilic head. So basic phosphate groups and acidic lipids, no. Acidic phosphate groups and basic lipids, no. Hydrophobic phosphate groups, no. And hydrophilic phosphate groups and hydrophobic fatty acids, yes. So our answer there is D. Question 4. A human organ is prepared for transplant. In what type of solution must it be bathed? So we don't want any water going into or out of the human cells. So it needs to be an isotonic solution. So not that one, not that one, not that one. A solution of the same osmolarity as the organ tissue. Yes, that means isotonic. Okay, question 5. So this is Pasteur's famous experiment. So it's asking us what results would be expected with no spontaneous generation of life. So let's have a look. So flask W, not boiled and not sealed. So we would expect to see growth in that one. Flask X, boiled but not sealed. You'd still expect to see growth in that one. Boiled and then sealed, you would not expect to see growth there because after it's been boiled, so it's sterile, it's then sealed completely, so nothing more can come in. And then this one, it's boiled but not sealed, but it's got the swan neck, so actually it is essentially sealed. So you would expect no growth there. So you're looking for growth in W and X, which is B. Okay, so question 6. Look at the graph. The mitotic index and the roots of the lentil plants are different distances from the end. So as the distance from the end of the root increases, the mitotic index decreases. Okay, so what are we looking at here? So as the distance from the end of the root increases, more cells are undergoing mitosis. No, that's the opposite. At 0.5 millimeters from the end of the root, most of the cells are in prophase. No idea, can't tell that. There are fewer cells observed at 1.5 millimeters than 0.5 millimeters. No idea, can't tell that. As the distance from the end of the root increases, the percentage of cells in interphase increases. Yes, because as the percentage in interphase increase, that means that the percentage doing mitosis decreases, which is what we have just said. So that is D. So then question 7. So what have we got here? We have a nucleotide joining together with a nucleotide to form a dinucleotide. And it must be a condensation reaction. So we can immediately cross out C and D. And then the product is this. And the product is the dinucleotide. So the answer there is B. Okay, question 8. What property of water accounts for its usefulness as a coolant? So that's the vaporization. And so here we have B, the latent heat of vaporization. Question 9. The diagrams show how monosaccharide molecules are joined to form chains in 2 polysaccharides. Using the table, which diagram and monosaccharide represent glycogen? Okay, so we know that glycogen is a branch chain structure. It must be Q. So that means we can immediately cross out A and B. Okay, now what is glycogen a polysaccharide of? What's its monosaccharide is glucose, so the answer must be C. Okay, question 10. So we've got the protein hemoglobin here. And what level of protein structure bonds the alpha and the beta chains together here? So that means there's more than one polypeptide chain in the protein, which means that there is a quaternary structure. So the answer there is D. Okay, so question 11 is about immobilized enzymes. So lactose can be removed from milk by passing the milk through a column of alginate beads, which we've done, which immobilized lactase is bound. What is an advantage of immobilizing the enzyme? So doesn't create more active sites or act as an enzyme or lower the activation energy, but it does allow the product to be separated easily from the enzyme because you can just pick the beads out. Question 12. The hydrolysis of a pure sample of organic molecule produced pentose sugar, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. Okay, so that tells you that this substance is going to be DNA, right? So what other substances could be expected to be present in the hydrolyzed sample? Well, not RNA, not uracil, because that occurs in RNA, not ATP, but phosphate, because that would be the last part of the nucleotides. So the data shows part of a genetic code for mRNA, which anticodon could be found on a tRNA molecule bound to lysine. So if this is the codon, the anticodons will be UUU or UUC. And so the answer, therefore, is B. 14, what is the effect of dominant alleles? So this is just a fact-based question. So they mask the effect of recessive alleles, yes. They don't actually necessarily become more frequent than recessive alleles in a population, so no. And they have joint effect with the recessive alleles when characteristics are codominant, no. Because if something's codominant, then you've got two dominant alleles having joint effect. So the answer there is A, one only. Okay, 15. So a good old haploid diploid. So, excuse me, this tetrad contains 48 chromosomes. Okay, so what is the diploid number of the plant? So that's the number of chromosomes in a single sex, like a single non-sex cell. And so that's going to be B24. Okay, question 16. What happens in meiosis 1 and meiosis 2? So you've got to try and find the statements which are correct. So it's quite useful to just cross off ones which don't make sense, or you just have to read through everything. So meiosis 1, the chromosome remains... I'm losing the thread of what I'm trying to say here. The answer is C. So the homologous chromosomes separate in anaphase 1 and the sister chromatids separate in anaphase 2. So in meiosis 1, you've got the pairs, and the pairs separate. And then in meiosis 2, you have the individual chromatids separate. So the answer is C. Sorry, I completely lost the thread of where I was going there. Okay, question 17. The diagram shows a pedigree analysis chart for cystic fibrosis, which we know is a recessive disorder. Okay, so here we have parents who don't have the disorder having a child with the disorder, so there'd be big F, little f, big F, little f. Okay, and the question is, what is the probability that the individual labeled X is a carrier? So if you were to do a Punnett square of this, you'd have this going on. So you'd have big F, big F, big F, little f, big F, little f, and little f, little f. So these two are the carriers. So the probability is 50%. So it's 0.5. Okay, 18. We've got a food web here. And which organism in a food web is assigned to its method of nutrition? So the violet webcap fungus is both an autotroph and heterotroph. No, it's only heterotroph. The pill bug, so these are secondary consumers. No, they're primary consumers. Bacteria are saprotrophs. That's a true fact. And the violet webcap fungus is a detritivore. You can't actually tell that, and no, because fungi are saprotrophs. So the answer is C. Bacteria are saprotrophs. Okay, question number 19. So you've got these slightly funny diagram. So which trophic level will have the highest biomass? Well, that is always going to be the first level of the autotrophs. So that is A. The diagram is kind of irrelevant in this picture. All right, number 20. A bit of pentadactyl limbs and homology going on here. So which statement best describes the relationship between the structure of the wing? So the bat wing and the insect wing are homologous. That's correct. Because, no, that's actually not correct. They're not homologous. Sorry, ignore me. The bat wing and the insect are homologous. No, they're not homologous. There's no common ancestry there. No. The limbs of the bird and the bat wings are homologous due to convergent evolution. It's not due to convergent evolution, so no. The wings of the pterodactyl and the bat are analogous due to divergent evolution. No, they're not analogous, they're homologous. And the bones of the wings of the pterodactyl, bird, and the bat are homologous as they have a common ancestor. Yes, so that is D. 21. So where is the SAN? So the SAN is in the right atrium. So if we think of the heart, right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle, roughly speaking. Therefore, A must be the correct chamber there. Okay, what occurs during inhalation? So during inhalation, external intercostal muscles contract, so we can cross off A and we can cross off C. And when you breathe in, your ribs rise up, so the answer is D. Okay, 23. How can species of bacteria evolve to be resistant to antibiotics? So you've got a variation of within the bacteria's genome, yes. Antibiotics enable the genes to become adapted, no. And an incomplete dose of antibiotics allows bacteria to survive and reproduce, correct. So we're looking for 1 and 3, so it is C. Marvellous, right, 24. What's the difference between DNA of adult identical monozygotic twins? So the only thing that can change is something which happens once you're born later in life, and the only thing on this that could be different is the methylation patterns, and that is indeed how they differ. In 25, some regions of DNA do not code for the production of proteins. Which regions of DNA are they used as? So they do have known functions, so it can't be A. Gene regulation, the codon for the production of enzymes. Well, enzymes are proteins, so it can't be that. Telomeres and the coding for the production of tRNA, yes. Introns and coding for the production of structural proteins, it can't be that. So it has to be C. It's also the right answer, but even if you didn't know that, you could work it out. The primary function of free ribosomes, so free ribosomes make proteins for the use inside the cell. So therefore the answer must be A. And then 27. So we've got two lines. We've got the uninhibited line and the inhibited line, and it's what happens when you've got a competitive inhibitor. So if you remember, a competitive inhibitor competes for the substrates. It competes with the substrate for the active site. So the way of increasing the rate of reaction when there is a competitive inhibitor is to increase the substrate concentration. So if you look at each of these graphs, so in A, increasing the substrate concentration had virtually no effect. It can't be A. In C, it has effect and then it stops having effect. It can't be C. And D, it's actually quicker than the uninhibited reaction. That can't be possible. Whereas in B, what you're seeing is it's a slow rate of reaction, but as you increase the substrate concentration, the rate goes up, and so the answer there is B. Okay, so in which situation are alleles exchanged? So it's alleles are exchanged when crossing over takes place, so that's the answer there is D. And so then in this case, we've got a dihybrid cross, so you'd expect a 93 to 3 to 1. They did a chi-squared test, and the critical value is 7.82, and the chi-squared value was 6.25, okay? So here your chi-squared value is less than 7.82, and so that means you have to accept your null hypothesis that there is no statistically significant difference, okay? So that shows that the genes are unlinked. So it can't be A because that's talking about the genes being linked, and it can't be C. So then it's a case of whether it's proof or significant evidence, and it's not proof because there's a confidence limit of 5% here, isn't there? So we're only 95% certain, so the answer is D. And then question 30, relationship of mass of birth and the percentage that die. So it's a nice graph like this, a nice clear graph, and so you've got selection going like that. So that is stabilizing selection, and so the answer is B.